Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. This is the, what day is it today? March 6th, 11 days from today in downtown Cleveland on a Saturday, St. Patrick's Day. So anyhow, here we are for the Safety and Justice Affairs Committee. If I could have a roll call, please, Jenny.
Calling the roll, Mr. Gallagher.
Here.
Ms. Baker. Here. Mr. Tuma.
Here.
Mr. Brady.
Here.
Ms. Conwell. Here. There is a quorum.
Thank you. Do we have public comment?
No, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. In your packet, there are the minutes of January 16th. If they're in order, I'll accept the motion.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Against? Thank you. 2018-0050.
Resolution number 2018-0050, authorizing a contract with Alcohol Monitoring Systems in the amount not to exceed $2,511,750 for GPS and alcohol monitoring equipment for the period 3/1/2018 through 12/31/2020.
Welcome. You have to hit that button.
There we go. Good afternoon, council. The Sheriff's Department, we're seeking approval with Alcohol Monitoring Systems, also known as SCRAM, for the Sheriff's Electronic Monitoring Unit. Other agencies that'll be part of this contract will be Common Police Court and the JJC. So what we did, instead of an RFP, we did not go off for RFP. What I did is we went to the GSA schedule and we asked for the three largest alcohol monitoring and GPS vendors to come in for a demo, and they gave us a demo. We asked them all kinds of questions about pricing, functionality, everything like that. We had several members of county employees actually wear the equipment for several days to test it, to see what they liked the best. And at the end of it all, it turned out that SCRAM, which is also known as Alcohol Monitoring, that was the vendor we've chosen based on pricing and based on functionality. So what we're doing is we're asking for our BI contract we're with Behavioral Interventions right now. That runs out at the end of June, but we're asking now to contract with SCRAM for a 3-year contract for again for the GPS and alcohol monitoring. And I brought a team of people here in case there's questions. I got law department here. I have JJC. I have CCSD is here, and Common Police. So any questions? And SCRAM is here.
Okay.
So
let's start with this. Donna, can we have your name for the record?
Oh, I'm sorry. Donna Khalil, Sheriff's Department Fiscal Manager.
There you
I
go.
didn't think I was going first, so you caught me off guard.
Well, usually juvenile goes first, but they didn't ask. So for those that ask, get usually, especially when I'm dealing with juvenile. But we have new members. Mr. Brady's a new member, and I believe this is his first meeting with safety. And actually on this, I'm interested, Juvenile Justice Center finally came in on this?
We brought them in under the third amendment with the old contract. So
Okay.
they've been on our contract for quite some time now.
So they were initially resistant, why we couldn't figure it out. And then a little persuasion, I would imagine, from your side took care of that.
Once we told them the price we paid compared to what they were paying, oh yeah, then Karen was all over it.
Okay, yeah, because it was, I don't know if it was a turf war or what, but it did make sense to go with you.
Yes.
If you could have somebody go through exactly what this is, because I went over and saw how the monitoring works and how you can actually have boundaries with these bracelets.
Can I bring someone else up for that? I can talk about pricing, but
Right.
you want to talk to SCRAM themselves, or you want to talk to like the Sheriff's Department?
Whoever would be able to explain the process when we put a bracelet on someone, what it does, and I'm mostly interested in how we can put a boundary on this person.
Okay, introduce yourself and then.
Good afternoon. I'm Chris Barstead. I'm a regional manager for SCRAM Systems. And to your point, the GPS technology that you guys are looking at contracting with us here in the near future, we do have the ability to create zones around certain addresses at any time during the day. So if they cross into those boundaries at any time, during the day or night, that we can receive instant notification that goes to the Sheriff's Department so that they can, attempt to stop someone from being re-victimized in a domestic case, or from, entering somewhere where they're not supposed to be at certain times during the day. So we've done that nationwide and in 6 different countries, and we're looking forward to doing that here in Cuyahoga County as well.
Does domestic court use this at all? It would, because it seemed to me that if you had an order against someone, especially nowadays when it's kind of been heightened, the awareness of these victims being victimized again by the same individual. They don't do that at all, or I would imagine legally they probably have to have a little bit more than an order.
Yeah, we typically can do that. We usually work through a victim witness advocate that helps us with some of those things. Can't speak to specifically here in Cuyahoga County, but in probably 50 or 60 different counties around the state, we do work with their domestic court.
I've not heard of that. Do they participate?
Currently, I don't know if domestic court uses any type of GPS. They're not on our contract, so I don't know. Common Pleas is here. They might be able to answer that, but I don't know.
Does anyone know? Okay, it's something for us to look forward to as far as getting an answer. Questions?
Yes.
Yes, ma'am.
Through the chair to whoever can answer. Who was previous monitoring system?
BI, which is Behavioral Intervention, and we've had them, we had them, the last contract was from 14 to current, but they were even our previous vendor. I think it was from 10 to 14.
Okay, 10 to 14. Okay, next question. The alcohol monitoring system is utilized in what departments? I'm kind of familiar with it, but where do we use it in terms of the county?
The sheriff's department used to run both the GPS and the alcohol monitoring. When we went from passive to active, it became so popular that the usage just started exploding, and we could no longer afford it. So Common Pleas came in and they took over the alcohol monitoring portion, and we do the GPS portion.
Okay, so would that be like for probation? People that are on probation, are they utilizing this system so they can test individuals?
Probation and pretrial, both.
How much of a savings from the previous vendor?
What I'm looking at is, hold on 1 second. The previous vendor for GPS currently charges us $325 per inmate or per detainee per day. The new contract is gonna be, where are we at now, Chris? Was it at 305 or? 320 for GPS per detainee per day. But the nice thing about this new vendor, when we talk to all the vendors in the demo, we ask them, because currently every time somebody say they're on a bracelet and the strap gets cut, or they lose the charger, anything. Right now, we're currently being charged for everything, all the incidentals. I just did a voucher the other day for $25,000, and it had nothing to do with monitoring or leasing the equipment. It was all incidentals. Anything lost or absconded, we get charged for. With the new vendor, we won't be charged for anything, for straps, wall chargers, wall cords, nothing. They're training for free. We usually got charged for training, and for the lost and absconded, they're gonna give us 5% of usage. So for us, it would be about 15 to 20 units a year based on our usage that could get lost or absconded, and we don't have to pay for. And that's really expensive. We just, I probably owe another $30,000 I have to pay to BI for more lost and absconded that I haven't gotten the bill for yet.
Okay, could you provide us with a cost of that over the contract period? So what we were paying before, $325, plus the incidentals, and versus this one?
The sheriff's department, with the incidentals added in 2017 we're gonna be somewhere in the area of about $450,000. Then the alcohol portion of it was probably about another $150,000. I can't speak about the lost and absconded for the alcohol portion. I could bring somebody up from Common Pleas who could talk about that. But all in all, we're probably in the area of $600,000. Then the JJC, they're at another $200,000. And I know they've had their issues with BI. Basically, Karen was telling me the other day about things that got maybe cut off and thrown in to a lake or something like that. And they called BI and said, can you shut this off, please? We're getting charged for time. And BI said, no, until you recover it, you're going to continue to get charged for time. Just little things like that Scram's not going to do to us. So again, we're probably in the area of, where is that, about 600? So probably about 800,000. I'm thinking countywide. I know Sheriff's Department, we're going to save between 50 and 100,000 at the Sheriff's Department. Countywide, I think it'll be over $100,000 savings, if not more. I mean, and these are estimates, but again, I know what we've paid in the past.
And last question. So what happens, I look at it as a double cost if individuals break their zone. So if they have the GPS, we're paying a cost for those individuals to wear their GPS. I don't know all the areas why they wear the GPS, so I'm a little in the dark about that. So if they break that, are we working with them to continue the GPS program because it's cheaper, or are some of their offenses making them have to be detained behind them?
Somebody from law department, from.
If you understand my
Yeah,
crazy
I can't
question.
speak specifically to here, but it's usually done as a cost deterrent for
come up
an alternative to incarceration.
Okay, we're gonna have somebody from the sheriff's department, from the law division, answer that question.
Thank you.
First of all, my name is Miguel Carball, I'm a lieutenant with the sheriff's department.
He's got
I've lost my voice.
Oh, okay. Just pull the microphone close to you. It'll pick you up better.
My name is Miguel Carball, I'm a lieutenant with the sheriff's department. I used to oversee the electronic monitoring unit. Basically, when somebody absconds, they break the bracelet or they just flee from us. Once they are detained or we recover equipment, we appear in front of the court and present it to a judge, and that judge makes a determination whether they're put back on monitoring or not. That's out of our hands. So it falls on the judges.
Okay, so in terms of that, because I'm sure that happens, probably not often, but it does happen. Is there anything in the contract that we get a cheaper rate or anything like that? Does the cost stop for that individual that has that ankle bracelet and then they go to jail? Or is there somewhere in the contract that if that occurs, is there a savings or something that, I know they're not gonna charge us to pay for the equipment if it's broken, but I'm just wondering if they work with us on that.
And I don't know, so you're saying if somebody takes their bracelet off
They flee.
and they flee,
You catch
do we, once their bracelet is off, we are no longer charged, correct? Yeah, we shut it off and Scram shuts it off, correct?
Thank you.
Mrs. Baker.
Yes, thank you. Just a couple of questions. On the resolution, it states that sentence for low-level offenders to keep them out of jail and with their families and communities where they can continue to be productive. So can you tell me what a low-level offender is that would qualify for this bracelet?
Typically like an F4 or an F5 level felony.
I'm not that familiar with the levels,
So something that doesn't require mandatory jail time, which would be like an F3. So basically, less nonviolent crimes and things of that nature, like drug abuse and things of that nature.
So if I may continue, so these are not people that would alternatively go to jail. These are people that would be on their own anyway, and we are now trying to make sure that they come back to court, or what is it? What is the reasoning behind giving them one if they're not going to jail to begin with?
Rich Peters, captain with the Sheriff's Department. Currently, the Common Police Court, Juvenile Court also, the Common Police judges and Juvenile Court judges decide based on the criteria, pre-sentence information they receive from the bond commissioner and so forth, whether or not to put them on the GPS monitoring. Some have it for pretrial release where, like I said, you have a low-level offender. Some are, if in a situation where a person, let's say, can make bond and it's a serious charge, they may want it as a safety net because they can't prevent a person from making bond and release because there's due process. So they add this device on to be monitored. Instead of just being put in on probation and posting bond, it's another safety net the judges can use to monitor people under this program stuff. But ultimately, the Common Police judges decide the criteria and what they feel, who needs to be out there.
Good to know. How many would you say a year are, given you have a history now with the BI, how many do you use a year of the tracking device?
Yeah, currently we have 300 units that were allotted. Like I said, we have a reserve we use in case there's loss and everything like that, but we currently have 300 on the program. It fluctuates over 300, under 300, but we keep it under 300 currently what the sheriff wants.
Are you currently going to keep it at 300, or is this new program going to be able to give you more?
Well, there's additional expenses that occur when increasing the monitoring of devices. Currently, like Donna said, we went from passive to active. And by going active, what we mean by that is instead of a person going out of a zone or is currently does something violated, currently under our active program, we have deputies that respond to that situation. It's not like situations where other cities have, where they can't afford to have, where people violate and suddenly the next day the probation department finds out about it. We instantaneously find out and we respond to those incidents. So whether they're out of a zone, they're not home at a certain time, things like that, bracelets that are cut, we respond immediately and have a dedicated staff. To run that is 24/7, so it's you have to use existing resources and so forth. So there would be an additional cost to add bracelets because by adding bracelets, different responses, and you don't want to water it down or make it not productive anymore. So there is a thought to do that, but
Right.
those are future too. But right now, we're comfortable with the 300 with our response and everything.
Chair, one more, if you don't mind.
Go ahead.
And the average of the 300 a day is GPS. If I'm not mistaken, and I know Common Police took it over, I think with the alcohol monitoring, we average about 70, 75 a day. I'm pretty sure something in those numbers. Well, yeah, okay, yeah, they're shaking their head, yes. So that's the average on alcohol monitoring roughly. And like Cap was saying too, I mean, if we can maybe save money on one end, we may be able to increase the number. That's, that's something we're looking into, but at the current costs, we can't because our budget just doesn't allow for it.
Good. And just one follow-up, of the 300 that you have a history of, what level of success would you say? Do you have any breakdowns of how many don't cut it? How many do show up like they should?
We're going to
How many are
have,
just gone and you never can find them? What's your success rate versus not having it at all?
we're going to have the probation department come up, give a better explanation.
Okay.
Tammy Sherman, Caldwell County Adult Probation Department. Last year, the number of success was 89%. That's including the people that have absconded or have been taken in custody by the sheriff's EMU due to a non-compliance of GPS monitoring.
If I may ask, what about the other 11%? Where do they fall?
The 11% for the people that abscond or the people that have a non-compliant, they were taken into custody for, failure to comply with the rules, whether they entered a zone, came home late, broke a curfew.
Okay, good. Thank you. It's very informative. Appreciate it.
Yeah, do you have cost savings on the other side, these folks staying out of jail as opposed to being in jail, if we've broken it down that far?
And again, on the average cost of an inmate, for me, I look at it for the marginal variable. I mean, you figure this costs us $3.05 per inmate, or $3.20 per inmate per day. Right now, we're at $3.25, we're going to $3.20. The lowest cost, which is the marginal rate for an inmate per day right now, is around $10 per inmate per day. That's the lowest cost. When I start adding in all the cost of a CO and fixed costs and space maintenance, then you get all the way up to $80 per inmate per day.
Right.
And so, but again, at the lowest end, just putting one more inmate in the jail today is going to cost us $10 per inmate per day. It's not going to affect any fixed
Right.
costs or anything. So the difference in cost savings of keeping them out of jail would be about a $7 a day, $6.80 a day per inmate per day.
Okay. Which adds up.
Oh, sure it does, yeah.
Sure. Anything further?
I just want to ask, can they send us a breakdown of that, the actual cost? I know when we first started this new government, it was quoted to us 55, and that, I don't know what costs are included with that, $55 a day per inmate. Can you give us an up-to-date, and you don't have to say it now, you could just send it to us. What's the up-to-date cost for an inmate, everything that they utilize?
I'll send you the marginal, the variable, and the fixed cost per inmate per day. And the 55 per day that you're quoting, that was the cost of the prisoner boarding care. That was the cost, that wasn't the actual cost of an inmate, but that was the cost that when we were outsourcing inmates, that's the cost we contracted with the munis to take some of our prisoners at 55 per day. Because back in the day, I remember where the cost was anything that the muni wanted to, it was anywhere from 40 a day to 110 a day. So, yeah, we were paying, that's when, back when I started, when prisoner board and care was, $7 to $8 million a year. It was crazy. So we contracted with several munis at $55. So that's the 55. Now, the cost per inmate in the county jail is a little bit higher again because you got to get into the medical services and things like that. But I will send you a breakdown on all the costs.
All right. Has there, I know Common Pleas was kind of go slow at the beginning, a couple of years back, or are they full bore on this, or are they still in the go slow mode?
No, they've completely taken over the alcohol monitoring portion of it, and they took it over during this, in 2017, they took over all the alcohol because it was costing us so much, so they just took that completely off our hands, so now they handle all the alcohol monitoring portion of it.
And the monitoring center is still at the Juvenile Justice Center?
Monitoring centers downtown at the Justice Center.
At the
1215
Downtown
West
Justice
Third.
Center?
Yes.
And that's 24/7? And if-
JJC monitors their own as well.
And-
I'm not quite sure where they monitor theirs. She'd be able to speak on it.
I just want to know where,
Those for
so
the sheriff's department are monitored downtown at the sheriff's.
if the council members wanted to stop by and see it, because I remember stopping
Absolutely.
by and seeing it and
Sure.
was really surprised at how really good it was as far as if you have a zone not to be in, you go in it, the sheriffs are on the street after you. I
We get
mean,
an
that
alert within
moment-
seconds.
Yeah. Juvenile?
Karen Lippman with Juvenile Court. So the juvenile court program is just slightly different. Alcohol monitoring is not something you can use with juveniles, so that's not part of our contract. We also, besides the GPS, we also have what we call cell service, which is opposed to being it's connected through a cell phone, through a phone line. We have two programs. One, the larger program is our home detention program, so these are primarily pre-adjudicated youth, and then our probation program, which are youth on probation. And those are all monitored either through the probation officer or the home detention officer. And it's not the same where there's a center where we've got people dedicated watching it. It's all done through the alerts that whoever's assigned to that youth would get the alerts if they either are outside of a zone or cut their band or run or whatever the incident is. So they're not out looking for them immediately, but they could, depending on the time of day or whatever, they will call and they'll follow up the next day or whatever, but it's not that same immediate pulling them up off the street.
And that would be their probation officer or?
Probation officer or home detention officer, depending which program they're in.
Okay, thank you. Anything else? Yes, ma'am.
To the chair on that point, Karen, so how many youth are utilizing the GPS system?
I knew you were going to ask me that. You know what,
If you
I'm
don't
not
have
even
it,
going to
get
venture
away.
a guess.
Okay.
I could throw a number out there and it would be wrong. So, but I will definitely can get you that number. The home detention program is much larger than the probation program. The probation program is primarily used either as a sanction for a youth that's going to violate their probation, so it's sort of a little bit of a safety net. A lot of times the probation youth have a very sort of small, finite period of time where they'll be on home detention, maybe a couple weeks, maybe a month or whatever, just to help them sort of get into a routine. And then home detention will be from hearing to hearing, and the jurist will decide whether they will stay on home detention. Sometimes it's part of our detention continuum, so they can either be taken off of it and just be at home on house arrest, or they can be moved up the continuum to our shelter care facilities, which we're going to talk about in a minute. So, but it is part of that detention continuum of keeping youth out of the detention center.
Okay, thank you. Janine, if we could contact the domestic court and find out if indeed they participate in this, and if they don't, maybe we can make them aware of it. Sir, I hate to, do you know of any other counties in Ohio where the domestic court uses this? Or is it just outside the state?
Summit County uses it through their domestic court.
Summit, okay. And maybe, are you aware of our court here?
We're fairly new into the relationship with Cuyahoga County Courts. That's why we're working on the contract now, but the presiding judge over their domestic court is has a good relationship with us and
Okay.
supports the use of our products. So.
Okay, thank you. If we could find that out, Janine, and we could make this service available if indeed they want to participate. And there's a need to move this forward due to the timeline?
Yes, yes, sir.
Okay, if everybody's comfortable with moving Resolution 2018-0050 to the full council under second reading suspension, I'll accept a motion.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Against? Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you all for showing. 2018-0051.
Resolution number 2018-0051, making awards on requisition number 40018 to various providers in the total amount not to exceed $1,682,158 for the Shelter Care Spectrum of Services Program for the period 3/1/2018 through 2/29/2020.
Karen Lippman with Juvenile Court. This is a contract that's from a request for proposal program for our shelter care program. This is staff secure shelter care for youth, part of our detention continuum. So this is it's sort of the first step down from our secure detention to get youth out of the secure detention center. And it's we have 3 facilities this year. So Cleveland Christian Home in Carrington, which we've been contracting with for a number of years, and then this year we brought on Beachbrook. Beachbrook is providing therapeutic foster homes only, and there's very, very few spots, like just maybe a handful, less than 5, I believe, for youth, where that's really the best place for them. We've never had that before, so this is a very brand new thing for us. We'll see how it goes. But the shelter care facilities have been really instrumental in getting youth out of the detention center, especially based on what's been going on at the detention center and the high numbers there. So that's the program we have. And I could take any questions.
Any questions? And these are the same 3 that we've been dealing
The
with.
2, and then the Beachbrook, which is the therapeutic foster home, is brand new. So we've never had therapeutic foster homes in this continuum before. So we're going to give it a shot. We'll see if it's something that's useful, helpful for certain youth needs that the shelter care is not really exactly right. So it's a little bit different.
Okay. Any questions? Go ahead.
Through the chair to Karen or Ms. Lippman, the therapeutic group home, is it going to fall under the same umbrella of how we, I guess, for the other 2, how we look at their objectives and how they're, I can't think of the right word right now.
Performance measures?
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yes, it is. And like I said, this is something that's brand new, so we're going to be sort of figuring out which is the type of youth that this is really better than the, the large setting of the shelter care, that this is something a little bit smaller for certain youth. So we need to sort of figure that out. And like I said, there may be only like 5 slots available. So it's really, it's almost kind of just a pilot thing to see if it fits into the continuum appropriately, and if we really have youth that are going to be most appropriate for it. So we just wanted to be able to expand it a little bit to provide as much relief from youth that really should not be in secure detention as possible.
So does it have the capacity to expand if we find out
If it really goes great, it's certainly something that we would probably have to RFP. I'm not sure if Beachbrook has more capacity themselves, but we can certainly look, in the county and in the region, a larger area, and see if there is room for more capacity. It's like I said, since we have never done this before, we really don't know what the level of need is and how it's going to fit in. But it was just sort of an area we wanted to sort of give it a shot and expand and see if this was something that was going to work.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Hi. Just help me out with this a little bit. I'm trying to understand what is different about this. What is, these 5 slots? the therapeutic group home, what makes it different? You said it was smaller. I mean, help me out a little bit with this.
So the shelter care facility is essentially, it's one of the residential facilities. So they could be, they could have like, Cleveland Christian Home only provides us 10 beds and Carrington has up to 30 beds. So it's a very large facility. There could be large rooms of, of dorm style kind of sleeping quarters. It's that kind of a facility. The therapeutic foster homes are just that. They're homes that,
So private home and
Yes,
and
that
a
is-
single
that it's a
bedroom, is that what you're driving
probably a
at?
single bedroom, but it's not going to be, you're not going to be in a room with 30 people.
Right.
You're going to be in a home setting that the adults there are specially trained to handle youth with certain
What
perhaps
kind of-
mental health
I'm sorry,
needs.
Mr. Chairman,
Yeah.
what kind of problems, what kind of criteria would be used for somebody to be eligible to be in this different type of a setting?
So, we did this RFP so long ago, I have to remember, but I believe we're really looking at the youth with mental health issues, where it maybe could be counterindicative for them to be in a large facility. That's something where you have the staff, for lack of words, or the adults there that are really more trained to deal with sort of some particular needs. There are some family issues going on where the youth really can't return home to the family, but putting them in a large environment just isn't really appropriate. They might be youth that tend to run away, where this is something they can be kept an eye on a little bit closer. There's no locked doors in any of these facilities. It's what we call staff secure, which just means the staff monitor the youth. It's really sort of that kind of particular youth needs that are identified that are going to be sort of targeted for these therapeutic foster homes.
So there's some kind of dysfunctional behavior. It makes it not appropriate, if possible, for them to be in a larger group of.
Right, they maybe don't have, going home is probably not an option for them for whatever reason, but being in a sort of a large setting isn't really going to be very, therapeutically good idea for them. I mean,
They can't interact with the other.
They can interact with the other youth, but there are some youth that they sort of feed off of each other, which is why we like to get the youth out of secure detention and move them down the continuum, because it just often what we say is that the lower level offenders learn from the higher level offenders how to be better criminals, and so we don't want that to happen. So we want to keep them separated, the low risk youth from the high risk youth. You want to keep them separated. So in the same vein, these might be youth that would maybe sort of feed off of some of the bad or criminogenic behaviors that we're seeing. So we want to sort of keep them separate and not, and as they move through the court system.
Thank you.
So.
Anyone else? Yes, ma'am.
Thank you, Chair. 45 total beds, is that enough? Do you have a waiting list? How does that work, and how often do they turn?
The population fluctuates. So the Cleveland Christian Home has 10 beds, and those are for males only.
Oh.
And that's pretty much their limit. Sometimes it goes up to 11, but it really changes from day to day because that population is looked at on a daily basis. Carrington has a little bit more flux in their number of beds, and so sometimes it goes up, a little bit, and then it will go down, and so it does fluctuate. They're pretty good at keeping it full at all times, and they look at the population of the detention center and the shelter care and home detention on a daily basis to see who can we move out. I mean, primarily, who can we move out of secure detention and move them down? Okay, we can move these 2 kids out of secure detention to shelter, but our shelter then is going to be, who in shelter then can we move down to home detention, maybe with or without electronic monitoring? So we're constantly looking to, consequently, there might be a youth who has been really behaving quite well in secure detention, and we can move them down based on their behavior. And the same with shelter care. Maybe someone's home situation changes and we can move them down and send them back home. So that is looked at, you know, every youth that's in each of those facilities is looked at on a daily basis.
If I may, so with the tools that you have to work with of where they can go and what is best for them, not only with these 45 beds, but the others that you were just mentioning, do you have enough resources that there isn't those waiting or those that you can't place or those type of circumstances?
Well, we never have enough resources. But that being said, so I don't think there's a wait list for shelter care, and there's never a wait list for home detention or with the electronic monitoring. We don't ever have a wait list for those.
All right.
I will tell you that the amount of general funds that are allocated to shelter care has remained the same dollar amount for 10 or 15 years, even though the per diem has gone up probably almost 50%. So we've had to supplement that to keep the number of beds. I think we used to have a lot more beds, and I'm going back in time, like when we had the Youth Development Center out in Hudson, and there was shelter care beds out there. And I believe we had a lot more shelter care beds at that time. So the numbers of, so we actually use some of our own special revenue funds to sort of supplement this so that we keep it full, but we always run through the general fund dollars well before the end of the year.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, anything further? And again, yes, oh, ma'am?
Just off the cuff when we're done.
Oh, okay.
Leave here.
Again, we have an issue with the time, not your fault. So you need this to move forward on second reading suspension.
That would be lovely.
If everyone's comfortable with that, I'll accept the motion for Resolution 2018-0051 for second reading suspension to the full council. All in favor?
Aye.
Against? Thank you. Miscellaneous business? No one?
So, Mr.
Public
Chair,
comment?
just on miscellaneous,
Yes,
is there, because I learned my world wasn't involved in reentry, so there's a lot of areas I'm not familiar with. But someone spoke about, I think it was Karen that spoke about these facilities. Is there any way that we can have like some presentations or something like that to break down so we could really understand? Because I know I've sat here for some years and.
Let's ask her, she's here. And we're always happy to see
I mean, we
Ms.
talk about
Lippman.
secure, we talk about
Is
detention.
it a sunshiny day without Lippman? No. The answer is no.
Always happy to be here.
Is there a way in which we could go maybe see one of these facilities?
The shelter care facilities?
Yeah, I think maybe that would answer the question.
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, you know, either one of the two facilities. Cleveland Christian Home is in Cleveland on the near west side, I believe, right? And Lorraine. And
Like around 100
Carrington's in East
110th
Cleveland.
or so, isn't it?
Is that-
Around that area.
Yeah. And Carrington's up in East Cleveland. So they're right in the neighborhood. So if you want to, I know that we could have our shelter care staff meet you up there and have the facility staff show you around and,
Put a notice out for those interested, and we'll contact you.
okay, that sounds perfect.
Yep.
Okay.
Janine, if we could do that, I'd appreciate it. Thank you. Does that take care of that? Okay. Any other miscellaneous? Public comment? Or
No
adjourn?
one is signed in.
Thank you. All right.